Okay, we have everyone here, so I think we'll get started. Welcome. Will the meeting of the Thursday, February 3rd, 2022, please come to order? And I'm going to read the sort of rules of the game for everyone again. We have 2 public hearings scheduled for this evening, at least that's what the latest agenda shows. During the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to join as a panelist to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The applicant or staff will share all application materials on the screen as needed. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any, and there will be clarifying questions coming from the commissioners first. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from any attendees. Please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on, and then be sure to unmute yourself if you're an attendee. Next, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and then those who oppose the application may come forward. As this public hearing must be recorded, it's important and necessary for speakers to identify themselves each time they speak by stating their name and address. The applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or the commissioners. Once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or may remain for the balance of the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Land Use Department at 203-245-5632 after 9 a.m. All actions taken tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are members Giselle McDowell, John Mathers, Shauna Hay, Peter Roos, Ron Boddenson, Elliot Hitchcock, and myself, Carol Snow. Staff present this evening is Aaron Mannix, town planner. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube and will be made available on the town website for viewing. And the town planner will now read the legal notice. Take it away, Erin.
Thanks. Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 20th. That's not the right date, excuse me. I apologize, I had the wrong one. Bear with me 1 second. I was looking on our website here. Excuse me. Notice is hereby given that the commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, February 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be conducted remotely as a Zoom online webinar. Attendees may join the webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information below. The webinar ID is 915-8196-6735 and the password is 452138. The following application will be heard. 21-34, 14 Railroad Avenue, map 49, lot 54, D District, 14 Railroad Avenue, LLC. Site plan review and special exception per section 6.222 to construct 16-unit multifamily development and associated site improvements. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the land use office. All written correspondence shall be submitted to Aaron Mannix, town planner, at mannixe@madisonct.org. Dial 203-245-5632 for assistance. Dated in Madison, Connecticut, this 10th day of January, 2022. Carol Snow, chair.
Aaron, I think you got the date wrong again. And then also,
No, that was the day that it was sent to the newspaper.
Okay, great.
That's why it's dated so early.
Thank
But
you for that.
it did run in the 2 weeks prior to this meeting.
Okay, thank you. So I think we'll get started with the public hearing. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the hearing.
Thank you, Peter.
I'm going to promote.
So the first item I have on the agenda is 21-27 CSP 168 to 178 Cottage Road. And I think we have attendees here representing them.
That's correct. They're coming over now, Carol.
Great. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, may I make a statement when you have a second?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Ron Bodenson. I'm on the commission. I wasn't at the prior meeting, but I have read the proposed minutes and I did view the video, so I'm up to speed on it. But an additional issue is that in 2017, maybe early 18, when this was first proposed, I was concerned about the Cottage Road intersections coming from the south on the marina and coming from the north. These are offset intersections, and there were suggested traffic standards about how far those intersections had to be apart on a road that was 45 miles per hour. The proposed plan did not show the distances, and I couldn't calculate them because I couldn't figure out what the measurement was. So I raised this, and engineer Stevens then put his protractor, whatever you use, ruler, and came up with the distance. And you'll see at the very last meeting, actually repeats it ambiguously, 170 feet. And that was within the accepted turning radius, because when you have offsets, you have people turning into each other, and to avoid a head-on collision, you need it so far apart. So that was satisfactory. That was my only inquiry about this entire matter. And I never appeared to be for it or against it. But I wanted to disclose that I did raise that traffic issue, which was resolved by the engineer. So I don't feel myself compelled to recuse myself from this hearing, because I wasn't an opponent of or a proponent of this matter.
Okay, thank you.
If anybody has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions for Ron Bodenson? Thank you. So that's for the record. And since then, oh, Peter, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that I have also watched the tape and read all the previous minutes as well, since I was not here last week.
Great, thank you. Also, yeah, I wanted to say that all the previous minutes were made available for those of us who hadn't seen them or who didn't take a deep dive back into the town records to find them, which is another way to view past minutes from past meetings. And also, I just want to say again that this application was approved. So we're moving forward now with the issue regarding the question about dredging. So do you guys want to take it away? The applicants.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is John Casey. I'm a partner with the law firm of Robinson and Cole, and we represent Marine Ventures in this application. Thank you again for having us tonight. This is a continuation of the hearing from 2 weeks ago, so our plan isn't to go over our presentation again. We trust the members to recall what we had said, as well as to for those who weren't present, to have taken the time to review the materials. This hearing was continued at the request of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to allow them to submit a letter, a comment letter regarding this application. Also, since the hearing was open last week, there was also a letter and a map submitted by Mike Gilman from Indian River Shellfish. That's the company that is co-located next to this parcel. And when Mike wasn't available 2 weeks ago, but he wanted to put something on the record to indicate that he was, his company is the Shellfish Company. And again, I won't read his letter to the record, you all have it, but basically it supports the application and indicates that the dredging is unnecessary, and also raises concerns about potential damage to shellfish beds in the river. We think this is consistent with what we've presented to the board regarding, that the dredging itself is not necessary to maintain this as a active marina. It also highlights, the potential unintended consequences of dredging especially in a sensitive area like the river here that has active shellfish beds. So we hope you take that into consideration. The other item, what you were waiting for, is the DEP comment letter that came in. And I think a couple of key takeaways from there is that they do not object to removing the requirement to dredge the slips. I guess for those of you will recall, I said I deal a lot with DEP, and John Lust as well is on the phone. So DEP doesn't typically want to encourage dredging. And I think that comes across in their letter. They kind of soft sell it a little bit, but I think the bottom line is that they, they don't object to the idea of removing that condition. And I can tell you, and members of this commission, anyone who's worked in coastal site plan review will know that if DEP doesn't like something, they will tell you straight away. So the way their letter is written, I think makes it clear that they have no problem with removing the requirement to dredge the slips. And I think really that's like our main issue here, and I don't want to go on and on. There was a suggestion in that letter that the condition could be revised somehow, or a new condition added to demonstrate, as they say, demonstrate the viability of the water dependent use remains in effect. So I want to touch on that briefly. So, water dependent use is defined in Connecticut's Coastal Management Act as those uses and facilities which require direct access to or location in marine or tidal waters, and which therefore cannot be located inland, including but not limited to marinas, and uses which provide general public access to marine or tidal waters. This project was approved, as Madam Chair, as you noted, it was approved as a, quote, mixed-use development of 37 two-bedroom residential townhomes, retail offices, and a marina. So a water-dependent use is baked right into the approval. The marina shown on the plans, it's been an operating marina with permits from the DEP or its predecessors since the 1950s. You have evidence in the record here that it's an operational marina, it's an active marina, it serves its market well, it's busy. So we think, as I said, the concept of having a water dependent use is built into the project. I'll also just remind the commission that condition 4 of the original approval also requires the granting of an easement to the Shellfish Company, the conveyance of 326,232 square feet of marshland to the town to preserve that, as well as an easement for public access to the shore, which the original approval says are, quote, intended for the purpose of making statutory coastal management goals by maintaining water dependent uses at the property and enhancing public access to coastal resources. So I point all this out to the commission to say that the original approval recognizes and demonstrates that, one, the marina is functional or remain functional, and you are going to conserve, and you have actively in your original approval preserved the site's water dependency. So I would say that no further amendment to the approval is necessary. We think, simply the issue we're here for, which is to remove the dredging requirement, which was unnecessary and burdensome, as we discussed, is really the appropriate outcome here. So with that, I'll leave it. I have with me who've been promoted are our engineer Chuck Mandel and John Lust, and the architect John Matthews, who are all available to answer questions, or if they have something to say. It's not quite like when we're in a room, we can figure out who has something to say, but I'll turn it over to Chuck to see if he has anything to add at this point.
Yeah, good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the owner. We had gone out, just a brief recap, we did take hydrographic soundings on the existing docks, piers that are there. We had John Lust, permitting agent for, he's done the harbor master of Brantford. Has credentials to assess the docks themselves. We proved that there were 29 viable slips. The original condition 7 was probably an error by saying that shall go to DEP. We've proven that there's really no need to go to DEP as shown in the letter that they had given us. So that's really all I really need to add to that. That the slips are viable, that they do exist, and there was no need for dredging. So if we just concentrate on condition 7, I think John can rehash that or go over. I think we have in excess of 40 docks actually. John, can you comment on that? John Lust?
Yes, I'd be glad. John Lust here, and permitting agent and consultant on this particular project. Yes, we have at least 43 viable slips at that particular marina. And as far as the viability of the marina, I think the fact that it's been in existence and functioning since 1955 that I can tell. I think that pretty much, I mean, if it wasn't a viable entity, it wouldn't have lasted this long. And I think it's only getting bigger and more busy. So I too think that we should just remove the condition to dredge and get on with it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Are there any additional questions from the commissioners?
Has that been opened? I thought it was still the applicant making the presentation. We can ask questions.
Sure.
Okay, I'd ask Chuck Mandel, who is the owner? You keep saying you're the agent of the owner, and I usually there's an application that goes through all that, but I'm not aware who
Right,
the owner is.
it's a Marine Ventures is the LLC involved. The actual owner is John can stop me if I shouldn't say his name. It doesn't matter. It's Gary DeBrick, actually the owner.
Yeah. And is this a different owner than when it was approved in 2018?
No, this is the same owner.
Okay.
It's just there's been some interest in the purchase of this property, and that condition 7 would have been a showstopper since it might take years to get a dredging permit. And John Lust can attest to that. In order to do the dredging, a couple of years, I believe New York State gets involved because it involves Long Island Sound, and none of us may live long enough to ever see anything.
And you've said that a number of times, it could take 2 or 3 years to get a permit and do the dredging, but it's been well over 3 years since the application. Why wasn't this done in the last several years then, if you're worried about timing?
I believe there wasn't any interest at that time, and no one gave it much thought at the time, and we didn't realize the extent of how much it would take to do that at that time. It's a bit not being naive, I guess, Ron.
And just so I understand your testimony, you agree that the condition of the river back in 2017 or 18, when you made this application, is exactly the same as it is now?
Correct. I believe the last dredging permit was in 94, 95. And in that area, those outer slips are actually it's very well channelized in that area, being so close to the bridge. So there's actually a natural scouring that happens there. So those will remain open for quite a while.
So there's been no change in the level?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And I know there's been some talk that Dep is now for this project, but you agree that Dep was very much against this project back in 2018. And one of the reasons, and they repeated in their letter a few days ago is the deterioration and disrepair of the bulkhead. And this was a big issue back in 2018. And I think the result, I don't want to misstate it, maybe Mr. Casey can correct me if I misstate it from the minutes, but the commission was told that the bulkhead would not be repaired because the cost would make this project economically unsustainable. I think it's basically the reason. And I assume that's still the reason today why the bulkhead is not being repaired, even though Dep keeps mentioning they're waiting for a permit to do so.
I'll let John Casey address that.
Sure. I wasn't part of the project team when the approval was originally granted. So I can't speak as to what was going through, what was the thought of the team or the owner at the time. We did talk about that. We noticed that DEP did mention, that when the owner is ready to discuss the permitting, that they offered their services, which is what they do. So when we did discuss this, and I think it's just as Chuck said, this project was approved. There was consideration, and there's still consideration that it might be sold to a different entity to actually do the improvements. So while that was happening, there wasn't any activity to do work on the bulkhead. And it's just been something that's been, put on the back burner while the owner talks to potential buyers. I think it's something that will get done as part of the overall improvements to the property. I don't think there was any intent, as we discussed with the owner, and to neglect it. It's part of the overall improvements to the property, and that's when it's intended to be done.
Well, you don't dispute that the minutes of 2018 had the owner stating it was economically unfeasible to repair the bulkheads and go ahead with this project. That's what the minutes say.
I have no basis to doubt what the minutes say.
Okay.
I haven't reviewed them, and I wasn't there. I mean, our
Okay.
discussion in the last week was that, that it would be part of the overall improvements at the time, in the future.
Okay. So would you be willing now to make that a condition that the bulkhead would be repaired as part of removing this condition?
I think we should learn our lesson from the dredging, from us being here now, because there's two things. We would need a DEP permit. It's not best practice to condition one agency's approval on the approval by another agency over which it has no control whatsoever. You really put the applicant in a tough position, because the two agencies can work off each other, and you could never move forward with the project.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, Mr. Casey, is
excuse me, Ron. I don't mean to cut you off. We did have, and I understand what you're saying, and we did have some discussion with the owner specifically about this. Because he said this will come up. The owner was willing to say that we will apply for permits for the bulkhead, but we didn't want it to hold up any COs or anything. And we would put that as a condition, not as phase 4 or in some regards, we could make that a condition that we will pursue permitting for the bulkhead repair. That he did say we were authorized for.
But I would
and just let me make my comment is that where I'm leading here is that so much was made in 2018 about the uneconomic sustainability of the project if you had to do the bulkheads. And now here in the last meeting, it's the exact same argument that you're making about having to dredge. It's in the minutes. I've written it down. John Luss testified to it. Maybe Chuck Mandel did too, that this project would now be economically unsustainable if you had to dredge. And the reason for that is the timing of the permits. Apparently it changed circumstance in the last few years about where you can put the disposal. New York's tightened the rules. But all that's happened since the permit was granted or the zoning was granted in 2018. Seems like there's been a change of circumstances to make dredging and disposal more expensive. But we're now being told, get rid of this condition too, or we can't go ahead with our condos. It just seems like a repeat of the situation from 4 years ago. Please don't make us do what's necessary to make this marina functional and a water dependent use, a bulkhead that's repaired and a river that's dredged to make use of the docks. We're just seeming to be moving farther away from the water dependent use, which also raised the question about, really, is the public going to get any of these slips? Because as it was mentioned in 2018, these slips are going to be first served to the condo. These are going to be a condo slips. Is that still true? Where the condo owners will get their slips, and once they have their slips, there's really no public slips? Deep raised that time and again. Yeah.
Well, Ron, if you remember also from the last minutes, I did state these were not going to be condominiums, that they're 40.
Okay.
They're going to be 43 viable slips. There are right now, and I believe they're 32 units. And I don't believe every condo owner is going to own a boat. The water dependent use is not going to change. It's still going to be a marina. The other, in regards to the dredging, the reason number 7 was added, which I have no idea why that was presented, and that was presented actually by our team, that thou shalt dredge. I don't know how that ever got there, but we did prove that there is no need for dredging. So we're really not substituting one, we don't need this, and now we want this. And I did say, so the dredging is not necessary, as we've proven with our hydrographic study and John Lust's testimony. The other element was in regards to the bulkhead, that we will pursue application to get that repaired, because I think with this condo project, I don't think the new buyers or any buyer would want the bulkhead in that disrepair. I mean, it's just not attractive at all. So that bulkhead will get repaired at some point. And the cost, I think the dredging cost may have been expensive or made it not viable at the time. And now with the new regulations, it really isn't. But the bulkhead repair is something that would fit into the budget of the new condos. We've looked at the costs of that. So to tie a condition of approval that the bulkhead will be repaired, we would certainly pursue getting the permitting for that, but we don't want it to hold up a CO for unit number 14 if that gets close.
But actually, the whole emphasis of the planning commission, this was a 4-3 vote. This was a very close decision, and they tied the conditions to the CO. They made it very clear that, and if you look at the motion by Joel Miller, he moves to approve it, and he mentions conditions, but then the only condition he actually specifically mentions is condition number 7 in the minutes. And that's what the focus of the P&Z was. 3 of the members weren't satisfied about this was going to be a water dependent use based upon the refusal to consider repairing the bulkhead. And that's why it's 4-3. But the other 4 were saying number 7 is really essential. And that's how it came down. It's the only condition mentioned. So what you're coming to us and saying, don't look at any other part of this whole development, the whole application, all the pieces that were controversial and that weren't, just focus on this one piece. But this one piece affects the entire decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And you're asking us to just change that and ignore its effect on how they voted and the entire. That's just what I'm going through in my mind is it wasn't just some throwaway. It was the issue, if you can rely on the motion.
If I may,
Maybe others, I'll back off. Others may have other questions.
if I may,
It's John Matthews. Could I make a couple of comments? Because I've been working on this project for 6 years, okay? I've been with it from the first before anybody else was here. When we did that project, initially, it was not required us to have any slips at all. Our whole project was based upon not using the slips for anything. And at some point, the commission decided that for each viable slip, they would give us 250 square feet of commercial space, which affected our density. So we agreed to do 250 square feet, and each one of those got us 500 square feet of residential property. Initially, we didn't need the slips, okay, at all. But the slips were there, and we said, okay, there are 29 slips. We'll use that, and that let us reduce the amount of commercial space that we were going to build on the existing building. And then when the project was approved, there was no issue or discussion or inclusion of the bulkhead in that approval. Not a single word about the bulkhead in the approval. We have demonstrated that condition was really onerous because the slips did not need to be dredged. It's like asking you to buy a new set of tires for your car when you already have a new set of tires on your car. So that's what I wanted to throw into the mix here.
Any other comments from anyone else?
If I may, Madam Chair, again, John Casey,
Sure.
Robinson Cole,
Yes.
for the
Thanks,
record.
John.
I just want to say, I feel strongly that removing this condition doesn't change the nature of this application or this development in any way. That condition, and I guess we know there's history behind it, but the purpose of that condition, right, was to make sure there was 29 viable slips at the marina. And we've shown that there are 29 viable slips. I have a feeling that everyone who was present there wasn't cognizant of just how difficult it is to dredge, the environmental impacts of dredging, or potential environmental impacts, and the permitting environment that goes with it. And as people have said, it's only gotten worse since 2018. I can tell this commission that since we last met, the Department of Commerce, which oversees coastal zone management, upheld an objection by the state of New York to another Connecticut marina's dredging project, which basically means, and I won't get into it, but it basically means that New York can object to every dredge disposal now proposed by a Connecticut marina, and one by one have them prohibited from disposing of this of any dredge spoils in a reasonable way in the 3 disposal sites that the Environmental Protection Agency has created specifically for those reasons. So this is a big issue, bigger than this commission, but I'm just saying, as to dredging, it has gotten much worse to the point where it's not reasonable for many marinas, or not going to be feasible for many marinas to dredge and have any hope to dispose of it. And that's just changed, as I said, in the last 2 weeks. But this marina has the benefit, thank goodness, that it doesn't need to dredge regularly. Some need to dredge every 5 to 7 years. This one has shown, we've put in the record, that the water depths around in the slips have been stable since the mid-90s. It was dredged and it immediately resilted to a certain level, and it stayed that way since the mid-90s, so over 25 years. And that's the market that it services, and as such, it provides those slips, it provides that water dependency, in addition to the public access easement, which is also a defined water dependent use under the Coastal Management Act. So I think you have significant.
John, we lost you most of that last 5 minutes of the discussion.
Pardon?
What was that?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I don't know if you have been able to hear me.
Yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm just going to say, I think you have sufficient, evidence in the record and in your prior approval that this will have a water dependent use associated with the development. And that our request to simply remove the dredging requirement is completely reasonable. And we would ask that you grant the application on those grounds. And if you have concerns about the bulkhead, to Chuck's point, as our discussion with the owner was, that at most you should ask, or that the condition says that we will apply for approval to repair or replace the bulkhead, because tying it to an absolute approval, which is not guaranteed, I think that's too big a burden on the applicant. Chuck made the point that this is going to have to be done as part of the overall improvements, and I think that's more appropriate for this commission to stay within its jurisdiction, since it can't you can't give us the permit to approve that bulkhead, and so making us go to a different agency, I think, I won't quote you chapter and verse, but often those types of conditions are deemed to be beyond your powers. But I just don't think it's necessary, because your approval requires certain water dependent uses, and that's not going to change whether or not that bulkhead gets fixed or not. So we think you have everything you need.
John Mathers?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reviewing the minutes of the previous meetings on this topic, I believe, John Matthews, it might have been you that said that the integrity of the bulkhead did not impact the viability of the 29 slips. That if the bulkhead were just be left to deteriorate, that it would not impact the viability of the slips. Is that still your position?
So I believe that's the case. I mean, just down the way, you don't have any bulkhead at all. You just have a slope that goes into the water.
So,
The
so is the
bulkhead is
condition of the
So-
is the condition of the bulkhead an aesthetic concern, or is there a structural concern?
I think I can speak to that, Mr. Mathers. John Lust, having built and run marinas like this, and having seen this particular marina, I don't think a deteriorated bulkhead would affect the function of that marina. It doesn't rely on it. It's more of an aesthetic problem. It's hard to market it if it's falling apart. But having been out there and looked at it, and I think, to answer your question, that the marina would still function like it's functioned since 1955. I think these folks want to improve it and make it more viable. One of the advantages of being tied to a larger project is that there's financing, there's cash flow. To the original marina, replacing a bulkhead would be a financial burden, but becoming part of a project like this is only good for that marina. And having sat on a commission like you are for 20 years and seen projects like this, believe me, they're going to be spending money on a marina. They're going to clean it up. It's going to look better. It's going to have more amenities. It'll be nice. It'll develop along with the property. I don't have any fear that won't happen, and I'm being objective here.
Are there any public safety concerns with the condition of the bulkhead? or the deterioration, continued deterioration of the bulkhead?
The deterioration I've seen is not a failure. It's not a structural failure. It's rot. The bulkhead here doesn't have to do a lot of work. It's not a very high bulkhead, and it's not holding back the land away from the marina or the river. If that bulkhead wasn't there, I mean, they put the bulkhead in to give themselves more upland. If the bulkhead failed, the river would get wider. And so I don't see a structural failure. That's a public safety issue, at least what I've seen there over the last couple of years.
Aaron, could you share that one screen that showed the survey that shows the soundings? Maybe Mr. Mathers, I don't know if you saw the maps that were associated with that. I know you look at the minutes, sometimes it doesn't show the map that we had done.
I've not seen them recently. I was on the commission in 2017 or 2018, and I saw all the materials, but I haven't seen them recently. I read the minutes of last week's meeting or last month's meeting. I'm familiar with the site, though. I've been to the site.
Yeah, so there's a
good.
visual right there, so you can see the distance between the bulkhead. Those slips are what's the length of those slips, John? Do you know? The ones that are close to the landward.
I think they're 15 feet in length.
Yeah, so that's about
Landward
another.
what?
Yeah, so that's a good 20, 25 feet away from the bulkhead.
Yeah, okay.
And then the actual the where people would walk would be to the south. You see the little walkway out to the slips. So that bulkhead would have no effect.
Where is the bulkhead again?
Right along there.
That whole, okay.
Yeah, it's the elevation of the ground there is about elevation 4 or so. Just for perspective, some parts of Middle Beach Road are elevation 4 also. They're not, it's not very high. So, yeah, that was it. Thank you, Aaron.
Welcome.
I see we have, if there are no other questions from the commissioners, we have a question from one of our attendees. There's a hand raised.
Right, that is Gary, and is that possibly the property owner, Chuck?
Gary, it could be, yes.
Okay, we'll allow him to talk. Gary, you can unmute.
Okay. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Ken, thanks.
I don't want to say a heck of a lot.
We need a name, don't we need a name? I don't know.
Gary Dobrin. I'm the owner of the marina and the property there.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say that when Tony Barone, who was the previous owner a while back, had that property, that bulkhead is backed up with mafia blocks all the way down. And just for aesthetic purposes, they put a wood bulkhead in. So in terms of safety, there's absolutely no issue whatsoever at all. And you can drive right up to the bulkhead, and it doesn't do anything. It's not a problem at all. That's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you. There's another hand up too, Aaron.
Sure. This is Michael Gilman.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mike Gilman. So I'm co-owner of Indian River Shellfish. I'm in the river every single day. I can attest to a lot of the things that have been discussed here. I will say, even though I'm really here for the environmental stuff, the depth of the river, the water flow in that particular area and the depth on the outside, it is not in question at all. The water flow there is enough to remove a lot of silt and keep the slips as pretty deep. I'm concerned that because it hasn't been dredged since 1994, that if potentially it does, there are some sediments that are going to be brought into the water column that are of concerning to me. And in addition, I get my livelihood out of this river. And I have an oyster bed that is within 800 feet of this dredge site. I have another oyster bed that is another probably half a mile downriver. And I grow about 2 million to 3 million oysters just about a mile and a quarter away. So I'm in the river every day. I know every rock and every speck of it. And I do know that for the most part, a lot of these dredge projects require dredging to occur on outgoing tides. This site is very high upriver, and on an outgoing tide, every ounce of sediment that's going to come out of the ground is going to fall south on the shellfish beds that not only do I lease and manage, but that both the towns of Clinton and Madison have spent the last probably 10 years putting quite a bit of money into to enhance, make sure that the oysters are spawning, and to allow it to be not only a commercial entity, but to grow the native population of oysters, which were decimated in the 90s from a couple different diseases that we have here. So I have a whole heck of a lot of concerns with pretty much anything that's going to disturb the bottom that high up the river. Also, I do own the property next door, and any sediments that are going to be released could potentially be washed into my slips. And that's a concern as well. So we keep commercial boats right there that are used every day. So that's one concern that I have. And there are a couple species that do survive in the river that are fairly protected. So the environmental impacts of dredging on that site could potentially be pretty large. So that's very concerning to me. I am very much in support of there not being any dredging that occurs on that site at all, really, for a variety of reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. One more, Erin, I think.
Yes, Carol, Steve Atkins.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am speaking as the Madison Harbor Master. Strictly a job I've had for almost 10 years, and I'm very familiar with the water there as I grew up in town and spent a lot of time on it along with the river. And just two quick things. One, I support the shellfish position of no dredging. I know where the harbor master is involved with their shellfish beds and their shellfish operation, and I think it will do them great harm. And I think the DEP realizes that also, hence their letter. And just one other quick item. Madison, we have a beautiful shoreline, and we own a lot of it, town of it. Certainly West Wharf and East Wharf and the Surf Club. But we have a terrible harbor. We got a harbor you don't want to be in a storm. Now, the Hammonasset River is a tremendously protected spot. And part of this application, or part of this process, is to gift the town 7.48 acres. If you go to the aerial shot that shows the river and the marshland, you can see that segment of marsh. It's just marsh that they want to give it. But the beauty of it here is it connects with Salt Meadow Park. And there's even an avenue from Salt Meadow Park that's already cut, like one of those big mosquito trenches, that offers direct water access to the river. Now, that 7.4 acres could also support a ramp all the way out to the river. It could support a floating dock. It could support a town marina, if you can imagine that, on a smaller scale. But it actually could, because it's the widest part of the river. And the shellfish beds are conveniently located away from it, on both sides of it, in front of it and back of it. The water gets wide there. I even imagine moorings right there. It's a great spot. Town moorings, like the Guilford Town moorings, a string of them. That's a hurricane hole in there. And I tell you, I'd put my boat there in a heartbeat in a hurricane or bad weather. This is a great opportunity for the town to really expand to that beautiful watershed. That shellfish property has cleaned up that water like you cannot imagine. You can't imagine the benefits of 1 million oysters cleaning that river every day. That river is coming back tenfold from what it was 10 years ago. This is such an opportunity for the town and such an opportunity for us to develop that access to the river. I hope you approve this application and let's get going. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
It's John Matthews. Aaron, can you put up one of those aerial photos for a second, please? I think this would let everyone really understand what we're talking about with this bulkhead.
Here, John, let me just find one for you.
Yeah, the one looking south that shows the sound would be the best one. There's two of them.
I picked the wrong one. Hold on. Here we go.
So it's interesting, if you look at, see where our single slip is, where the kiosk is, at the north end of the bulkhead, that's where the town property starts. If you'll notice, the town waterfront has no bulkhead. It's just the dirt that goes into the river. And it's also true on the other side of the old roadway. And then if you look south, you go all the way down the bulkhead to where our property starts and the shellfish guy starts. There's no bulkhead there. It's just a dirt bank that goes into the river. And you can see the extent of this bulkhead. And as Gary said, behind the bulkhead, there's actually concrete blocks that structurally make this bulkhead safe. But I think this gives everyone a good picture of what's happening. And if you look beyond our parking lot, that big green area after the water turns to the right, that's the 7.5 acres that we're giving to the town. And if you look down to where the first turn is, there's actually 2 piles sticking up. And that was the old, that's where the seaplanes used to come in. And the town has been looking to make that into a kayak launching place from Seaside Park. So I just think that's sort of good things to know. And if you look at the left side of the river, there are absolutely no bulkheads there. It's just marsh or dirt, and it goes right down into the river.
John, this is Ron Bodenson. Can you point out again where the town property is on the far right? You see a road coming in?
Right now,
Oh,
on the
here?
far right, if you see
Right.
the end of the bulkhead, there's a little tiny shed there. Over to the left, Aaron.
This is
That's
the
our
kayak launch.
kayak, that's our kayak leasing kiosk. And that float coming out is where our kayak renters put their kayaks in. Immediately to the right of that shed, that's the town land all the way over to where you see that big tree in the right.
Right.
And the town
So
has just
Cottage Road,
improved this
Cottage,
piece of land.
so Cottage Road is a public road and comes in right to the town where that
This is a
dock
town.
is, right?
Right. Yeah,
So-
it's a huge, big hammerhead.
Right. So as part of your project, you all did not give the town any road or any access to the river. The town owned that already. Isn't that a
Correct.
fair statement? All right. And now what the town has done, they've abandoned the idea of putting in a kayak launch at Salt Meadow, but they now put in the kayak launch right there on the road.
Correct. Next to
Oh.
our kayak launch.
All right. So what I keep hearing is people taking credit and part of your development for the fact the town has a kayak launch pad and a road. All that was there before and it's there now. And I'm glad perhaps the town and you all are cooperating, but you didn't give the town anything to create a public
No,
access.
we
for
gave
boats.
them parking spaces and access to the waterfront and access to the deck for public access, which is
Well,
part of a water dependent use.
Yeah, but that's on your property, but they have
Correct.
the access to the river. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can take that down there.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to be clear on that last point, the approval from 2018 requires that the applicant convey an easement for public access to the town of Madison the proposed deck, sidewalk, and stairs leading to the deck, and 4 parking spaces as shown on sheet C4 on the application plan set. So there is public access that's going to be deeded on this property. It's which my understanding is enhances the adjoining town property, but it definitely enhances the public access.
Thank you for that clarification. I think if that's it for questions, Aaron, do we move on to the next applicant before we go to deliberations?
No, Madam Chair, I do see the harbor master has raised his hand again, I believe. If you were willing to entertain additional comments from him.
Sure, one more quick comment. Steve Atkins.
Thanks. I'll be quick. Just to, I just want to Ron brought up the town put in a kayak launch next to the kiosk building, and they did, but there's also a sign there stating only to be used at times of high tide or within 2 hours of high tide. Because there is no ramp, there is no dock, to walk down the slope is dangerous. And after they put in their little kayak launching area, they found that out, that there's no way to get to the water. So it's there, but it's not in a great spot. Moving it down to the Salt Meadow Park would be a huge improvement. Thank you.
I agree.
But-
Thanks.
But Steve, you used to live in Windermere. We have a natural put in for kayaks there, but it's unusable except at high tide or moderate tide. Can't be used at low tide. That's just the nature of the beast. And that's why the Salt Meadow doesn't work, because you'd have to have a very complicated and expensive dock going out to the river to sustain it. So,
Well, Don, if I may, docks are expensive, but wow, riverfront, and getting access 24/7. Come on, that's what we dream about.
no, we only dream about it in high tide. We don't care about low tide.
Well, you're okay, Ron.
We kayakers are very determined.
I know, we're different.
Great. Okay. Thank you all for all these comments. And
Madam Chairman, just
Yeah.
one more. Add. So Ron, you had mentioned that, we're mixing and matching and we want to get out of one and do the other. So, I mean, we are here to address condition number 7, which was the dock dredging, which I think at this point, I don't know if everyone's convinced that we really don't need to dredge, which was the condition. That aside, we would substitute that with going ahead and applying for permits for the bulkhead, but we didn't want that tied to any COs or starting development. If we could do a phase 4, we would certainly add a phase 4 to that, but we would certainly go ahead and go for permitting for the bulkhead, apply for permit. I just wanted to circle
But
back.
Chuck, would you be agreeable to do what our draft ordinance or whatever it is says, and even more so what Dep has suggested, require the applicant to demonstrate to the commission's satisfaction that the marina is functional in order to conserve the site's water dependency before any development of the current property. That's my suspicion, is everything seems to be headed away from assuring this water dependent use. And let's make phase 4, maybe we'll ask for a bulkhead, which you convinced me isn't that necessary. But I'm just deeply suspicious that the water dependent use is being pushed way to the back. And under the prior ordinance, we don't have much control over you. Under the prior ordinance, it can be what do you call it? A condo? What's it called?
Documinium.
Documinium. There's nothing in the prior ordinance to prevent that from happening. In fact, it was pretty much stated that's what was going to happen. I mean, taking credit for the town's kayak entrance is not a water dependent use that you all have created. I'm just worried that we're not going to have a strong enough whole. and I know John Matthews says, well, water dependent use is sort of something new. It's the number one issue for any development on the water in Connecticut. To say it's an afterthought is ludicrous. That's what I'm concerned about, that you're not taking the water dependent use as serious as, and not dredging was sort of made me think that you weren't concerned about it. I'm heading your way on that, particularly because of what the oyster guy said. But I'm not convinced the slips are going to be there, or they're going to be used for public purposes or whatever. I need some assurance. Maybe
Well,
I'm the only one.
Yeah, let me just answer you. Well, to say that the water dependent use is pushed to the background, I don't think that's even possible, because you're right. That was the number one issue, was the water dependent use. So traditionally, right now, the water dependent use for that marina was really just for dockage and storage of boats. It really wasn't much there. If you look at the list of what water dependent use means, it's really, that's all that marina ever was. It's for storage of boats and for launching. And there's no boat ramp, there's no boat lift capacity there. So there are 43 slips there. There are 34 units that are going to be there. I can't imagine everyone who is going to own a boat there. It will be a viable business, and they will look to rent those slips. So I don't know if you could put a percentage of only X amount per season can be used for the docks. I don't know how that could work. Maybe John Casey can help me with that. That I don't know. But yes, I mean, we would agree to keep this moving. Yes, I think the owner would agree to something in phase 4, that we would absolutely pursue the bulkhead and maybe designate a fishing spot. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there, just so the commission has some comfort with the fact that that the water dependent use will not change. Their easements will be in place, and maybe a percentage would have to be dedicated to the public after a certain time in the season. Let's say by, I don't know when people start renting, by late April, May. If certain aren't rented by the public, then maybe the condo people have access. I don't know. We'd have to think that through, but I think that's something we could certainly work out.
If I may, when I started, I wanted to go back to the original because I wasn't part of this, and I looked back at what you approved, and I understand what Chuck's suggesting here, but you approved a development that includes a marina. It's right in the approval. Those are shown, the slips are shown on the plans. They are calculated into the size of the development. So without the marina slips, as John Matthews explained, they don't get all the upland development. So they are intertwined. And I just don't think we need to gild the lily is one of my favorite. It's approved as a marina. We've shown, I think, to your satisfaction, as the DEP has stated in its last letter, that the marina is functional in order to conserve this site's water dependency. I think we've shown that with the bathymetric survey from just this past October that shows the slips, and as well as John Lust's testimony, Mike Gilman's testimony, that this is a functional marina. It functions. It's part and parcel of the development. I don't know what more we need to do to tie. I represent a few commissions out there, and not that you need to keep all your approvals simple, but to create a condition that would require someone from the town, and probably the Aaron, to go and check who is applying for slips, where do they live, how did they get notice of it. A marina is a marina. I don't think it should matter to this commission that it's who gets to use the slips. I think I think it'd be overburdensome for you and for your staff to have to police who gets those slips. Should it only be people from Madison? What if someone from across the river, wants a slip? What if someone from across the river already has a slip, and the practice is that you let them release the slip every year? Do you have to kick those people out? I mean, John Lusk could probably speak more to how slips are managed. I mean, my experience in the last 2 years is that marinas like this with these smaller boats are in high demand, and that since they're required as part of your approval, this is going to be a fully operational and busy marina. And actually, I was thinking, yeah, we won't even go back into the dredging because I think that ship has sailed, so to speak. I mean, the impacts would really take away these slips from regular people, because you would dredge them so deep that only people with really big boats would be able to afford the slips. And I don't think that's what you want. So I guess this is all to say, could we come up with some convoluted, condition about the slips and who gets the slips? I suppose we could. But if your concern is that there's just a marina there, you've already required that this be a marina by your last approval. It says it's a marina. It's shown that it's a marina. We need the slips to have the upland development. I would just, caution you to doing too much that's not really necessary to get the same result. Thank you.
And Chuck Mandel again, and just that, so the Salt Meadow Park, it's almost 1,100 feet of frontage that the town would be acquiring. And I believe they would be putting in another launch area for kayaks and for canoes. So in regards to water dependent use, we're actually helping the town expand that water dependent use by almost 1,100 feet of river. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I just wanted to mention on the record, I did provide a memo to the commission, and I wanted to at least share some of that with the applicant, so you were aware of the communications that we have had regarding that. Basically, there's a memo dated February 3rd, 2022. I can share that for you. Just to provide an update, and much of this we did touch upon, but again, just to add this into the record, the commission has received 2 new pieces of information. The first letter from Dep, which is incorporated in the record. It indicates that the state does not necessarily object to the removal of condition number 7, provided the intent of the original condition to demonstrate the viability of the water dependent use remains a priority. Our second document received is a letter from Indian River Shellfish Company in favor of the removal of the condition. This letter is also in the record. The commission, at Dep's suggestion, may wish to have the applicant state on the record the reasons this marina is viable in its current condition. At the last meeting, the applicant did detail the depths of the slips and the types of boats that could be accommodated. Additionally, the applicant should speak to the condition of the docks themselves and whether repairs are needed. Lastly, documentation of slip usage over the last year or 2 could help demonstrate viability. Much of that you have already discussed, but I did just at least want to share that on the record that it's submitted.
Okay, thank you. I hope we can close the public hearing for this application. And again, I thank all of you for coming again to this meeting and providing us with some really useful information again. Do I take a motion to close this part of the public hearing for this application?
Before we close it, do we need to allow people to speak in favor or against? I mean, I know we opened it up to questions first.
Oh, good question, Elliot. I thought we covered everyone, but is there anyone else who would like to speak in support or in opposition?
I do see the property owner, Gary.
Yeah, I see there's a hand raised.
Looking to speak again, so I'll let him have a moment.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Gary.
Unmute. Is that me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I wanted to address just something that Ron had mentioned regarding the kayaks. If you recall, I think you live in Windermere, do you not?
Right?
Yeah, and if you recall, we had a rental business there, and we rented no matter whether the tide was high, low, or indifferent, because we had it figured out. It was very simple to launch kayaks. The guy who was, this is kind of unusual, but when they were putting that little park in there, one of the guys who works from the town said that, I said, why don't you go to the DEP and let them get permission to put like a ramp in there for the kayaks, right? And the guy said, are you kidding me? It'll take 5 years. So that's an interesting little fact. And that's a guy that works for the town. And he works for the town. So that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay. Aaron, do I ask for a motion then to close this portion of the public hearing?
Sure, I don't see any more hands raised
Great.
from the public.
So could I have a motion, please?
I'll motion to close.
Thanks, Giselle. Second? Peter, thank you. So this part of the public hearing is closed. We have another application, I believe.
Don't we vote on this?
Oh, that's a question I had, Aaron, for you is, do we go, according to our agenda, we continue the public hearing with the second application, then go to deliberation?
No.
That's up to the commission if you wanted to take a vote to rearrange the order of the agenda to discuss and
I guess I'd
act on
rather
this
vote.
application, that's fine. Otherwise, you can open the other one.
Maybe shouldn't we vote on this application
Yeah.
first before we move on?
Okay, that's fine with me. Well, it's all fresh.
Right.
Are there any other comments then? And oh, sorry, Aaron, you were going to say.
Just a motion to rearrange the agenda would be appropriate then.
So we need to make a motion to go to deliberation about this application and then continue the public hearing for 21-34 14 Railroad Avenue after we deliberate this first application. Could I have a motion for that?
I so move.
Thank you, Ron. Second,
I'll
Peter?
second.
Giselle, Peter, thank you. Okay, so further discussion. Does anyone have anything else to share?
I have a question for Aaron, if I could. So a lot has been made of the fact that there are plenty of water dependent use protections here. And there is a tie-in on the number of slips, I think, in relation to reducing, I think, the amount of commercial space. Is that correct? That was part of the original application.
Yeah.
So what happens if a hurricane hits, all the slips are wiped out, and the next day they come in with their application to begin construction of the condominiums and the retail? What handle does the town have now that there are no slips and we have no, are we in a position to say, no, you can't build because your entire development was arranged based upon the number of slips versus retail residential, or are we just out of luck? I think I've been misunderstood. I don't really care who has these slips. What I care about is that they exist. And so that's what Dep is really saying too. Before you let them to start building, make sure there still is a viable water dependent use. And if the bulkhead caves in, the slips aren't maintained, a hurricane wipes them out, what power does the town have in relation to saying, no, you can't go ahead with the rest of the development? You tell me, Aaron.
Well, I would think that if we had some type of environmental catastrophe, like a significant storm that has damaged the property and the marina, prior to or during the construction activities, it's likely that the applicant would be returning to the commission to address this particular condition of approval. It's clearly, they are, as Attorney Casey indicated, they are linked. And they would need to come up with some type of mitigation, whether it's to, get permits for new slips and that's something that I think the commission could address at that time. We can't foresee what will happen with storm events or any act of nature, but yeah, I would think that's reason enough for the applicant to return to you to see how that plan would be
But it can
modified.
just be disrepair. I mean, the bulkheads are in disrepair, no one cares. What about the slips being in disrepair? No one cares. And then they request, well, let's start with building or condominiums. It's what makes me, they pretty much convinced me about not dredging. Really, it's a lot of the testimony was that it seems to have developed stabilization. It's very shallow and whatnot. I wasn't convinced about the expert. The oyster guy sort of convinced me you're just going to dredge up a bunch of stuff. But I still like the idea that Deep is proposing, and you a little bit in a proposal that we make sure there's a water dependent use that's viable before we give them occupancy or construction permits. They're coming to us to get rid of something and they're saying, oh, it's going to be water dependent. Don't worry about it. Well, they shouldn't worry about proving it then at the time, 3 years from now, when the new owner shows up to start construction. It's my thought. John?
Chair.
Yes, John.
So I hear what you're saying, Ron, but it's my understanding that that protection is already built in. Is it not, Aaron? I mean, isn't this application dependent upon these slips? They can't develop without the slips. Is that not true?
Correct. That square footage is, as John Matthews had indicated, yes, allowed for.
That's what bought them the 1/3, 2/3 commercial residential split. So if a storm were to come and wipe out the slips, my impression is that they would be obligated to restore the slips in order to maintain the integrity of the development agreement. Is that true?
Right, there would be, yes, and the commission has the opportunity at this point also to condition that the 29 slips be maintained and the marina as a priority to conserve the site's water dependent use. And that responsibility is on the property owner as part of this special exception approval.
Is that condition acceptable to the property owner?
The property owner can't speak at this time as the public hearing is closed. John.
Okay, thank you.
But sorry, quick question. This is Shona. Hey, isn't the condition that there's 29 viable slips, right? That's already built in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what more we would enforce that or
Gain.
yeah.
I'll read you.
No harm being repetitive then.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like that's what was already in the original condition, was that it was 29 viable slips.
That is condition 7 that the applicant is seeking to
Get rid of.
withdraw as prior to the issuance of any building permits. The owner shall apply for permits and approvals necessary to complete the dredging of at least 29 slips. So there's an understanding of that number of slips. However, the applicant is seeking that they remove that condition as they feel they have demonstrated that they do have 29 viable slips based on the information they have provided to you as part of this application.
So would we need to reconfigure how we're writing condition 7? Like if we agree to take out the dredging, but we still want them to maintain a number of slips because the marina is approved based on
water dependent usage.
I think that's a good point, Giselle. And I think the suggestion that we do include a condition about the water dependent use and maintaining the 29 slips is not unreasonable, even if it's redundant.
Yeah, there is a comment that Aaron had passed along that I think suits that perfectly. It says that as a priority, the marina, including the 29 boat slips, being maintained to remain functional in an effort to conserve the site's water dependent use. That seems like that's the language that would solve the problem. It just puts an extra point on it.
Thanks, Peter. Elliot, did you have something?
Yeah, actually,
Ed?
I did before. I was actually one of the 4 that voted in favor of this project back in 2018, and with one of the conditions being the dredging. And I do feel very comfortable with the information that was provided to us to basically show that there is 29, or from what Mr. Luss said, I believe up to 40 viable slips on this property. And as long as we do put in something for maintaining the viability of those slips and maintaining the slips, I would have no problem removing the condition of having to do the dredging, especially after hearing from the Shellfish gentleman.
Okay, anyone else have anything? I do want to follow up too on Elliot and say that at the previous meeting, I asked a lot of questions about what type of boats would be appropriate to have in those slips, because I was concerned about a few things, sort of the effect of motorboats and say 150 horsepower engines almost dredging up the silt themselves. But I think that, I think I also took a lot of relief from the oysterman telling us what his concerns were about dredging versus just leaving it as it is, and leaving it as a viable marina as it has been. And adding, I don't know, 10 or so more shallow draft motorboats, I don't think is going to cause a problem environmentally or to the oyster farm. So, or to the erosion with the bulkhead in disrepair. So those were my concerns as well. I think then if everyone feels comfortable, we've got enough information to go forward. Perhaps someone can make a motion. Peter, you read so eloquently.
Well, it's just reading. We can all do that, but I'd be happy.
Do you want to
do it,
form
yeah.
it into a motion?
But also, please remember, they volunteered. They may regret this in 4 years, but they volunteered to have as a condition, they will seek a permit for a bulkhead.
I was going to add that in.
Yeah, so add that.
Applied it
Okay.
to
Let
you.
me give this a shot and let's see where this
Okay.
goes.
Thanks.
Voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve applications 21-27, CSP 168 through 178 Cottage Road, special exception modification request and coastal site plan review to remove condition number 7 with the following conditions. 1, that all conditions of the original special exception approval of July 19th, 2018, except number 7, remain in effect. 2, that as a priority, the marina, including the 29 boat slips, be maintained to remain functional in an effort to conserve the site's water dependent use. And 3, that the applicant apply for a permit to repair or replace the bulkhead. This action is based upon a finding that the applicant has sufficiently demonstrated to the commission's satisfaction that the marina is a viable water dependent use in its current condition. This application is approved based upon the finding that it is consistent with the coastal use and resource policies of the state of Connecticut. The effective date of this approval shall be February 18th, 2022, and upon the filing in the town clerk's office. How does that work?
Oh,
Sounds good. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in
Take one.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I think, Shauna, I think you had your hand up first to second that motion. So for the record. Okay, it's approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night.
you. All right, we should move forward then back to public hearing for 21-34, 14 Railroad Avenue. Aaron, I was wondering if maybe we should start with some of your thoughts and what you wrote to us, shared with us about this application.
That's fine. I do think it's, and to discuss that, and I have shared my comments with the applicant.
Okay, great.
And John Matthews is here, and there are, I believe, the entire team here on behalf of the applicant. However, John may wish to do a brief introduction at this point and kind of set the tone as to what direction the applicant is looking to go this evening before we get into specific comments, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, great. That would be good to have a presentation. Thanks. So John Matthews, or yeah.
John, do you want to unmute?
Yes, are you going to bring the other members in of the team?
Yes, I can do that. I wasn't sure who you were going to have in here. Okay, they're coming over, John. You can go ahead.
Okay. My name is John Matthews. I'm an architect with offices at 817 Boston Post Road in Madison. I'm also a Madison town resident. I've been working on this parcel for a couple of years with my client who owns Bradley and Wall Delicatessen. This site was formerly, if we could put up that site plan, Aaron.
I'm getting it right now for you, John.
Okay.
1 second.
This site was formerly the Henry Cooney Septic System company, where he dealt with half the septic systems in town. To the top of the screen is Railroad Avenue. As you come down into the site, there's a new two-family house being constructed. There's an existing two-family house there, but it's way too close to the east property line in order to get a proper driveway into the site. And then once you pass the two-family house, and it matches in scale all the other houses along Railroad Avenue, you come down, there's some parking, there's some public space, outdoor activity areas, and then we have 3 residential buildings, which consist of 13 townhouse units that have garages on the first floor. Second floor has living room, dining room, kitchen, and then 2 bedrooms above. And then the unit in the sort of center of the site is an ADA unit when you first come down the driveway that has, it does not have a garage. It has a first floor bedroom, living room, dining room, kitchen, and then on the second level, there's a bedroom and an open loft area. These units are very sort of urban units. It's a very tight site. All the setbacks and so forth have been met in terms of the DVD requirements for downtown. But we have an 18-foot wide driveway. Your regulations require a 15-foot driveway if you're more than 100 feet from the street. So we're 3 feet wider than that. This would be built as individual townhouses, and they would be done under the residential building code. So the state fire code does not apply because these are effectively like single family houses or a 2-family house. We have 42 parking spaces, including 13 garages. There's a big open area down at the bottom where we could have a place for snow plow, for putting snow, which is a been an issue these days. So the septic systems are down in the parking area at the southern part of the site. There's a stormwater system in that space between the building up by the road and the first building down on the right. There's site lights. We have a photometrics plan. We have a landscape plan that Tech Landscaping has completed. We met with ACA last month and they had some comments and we have addressed those comments. There will be meeting again this coming Tuesday, which hopefully they will write a favorable report back to the commission. It's a very tight site, but the P&Z rules look for creating good density housing downtown. This is probably the last site that's available for housing of this nature down here. These are 3-story buildings, the ones in the back, and they are abutting the huge big building that Clarity has to the south of us, which is not shown in plan on our site plan. I do have some pictures and stuff of all that, but I think what Aaron has suggested is us continuing this hearing to saying the 17th. Meanwhile, there were some issues that Aaron brought up. We got her memo today at 2 o'clock. A number of the issues we've already addressed, but we need to sit with the staff and just review to be sure that we've addressed the issues that she's identified. So that's, this is a New England kind of design. It's clapboard, it has gable roofs. There's little porches at the second floor over the entryway that goes into each unit. So people can sit in those little porches across the driveway and talk back and forth. So it's a really very urban approach to being downtown. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or give you any more information, but Aaron kind of felt that maybe tonight we would just do something simple and then get into the more details next meeting. But I'm happy to go as far as you want to go.
Thank you, John. Does anyone else on your team want to give a presentation or any part of it?
We could certainly show John Cunningham's landscape plan. I mean, that would. John, you're on, right?
Yes, I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Let me see here, John. John, if you have it, you're welcome to pull it up. Otherwise, you're looking for a colored rendition or just your.
There was an updated one, Aaron, I think.
Let me see here.
The updated one is black and white, Aaron. It's not colored. His older one was colored, but
Aaron, if I can share my screen, I can pull up the colored one.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes, thanks.
I'll be quick. I know it's getting late. Railroad Ave at the top. As John said, there's going to be a new 2-family house here. The larger green circles on the plan are shade trees. I chose the same variety that flanks the other side of Railroad Avenue, which is Zelkova. It's a medium-sized shade tree. I think it'll be perfect for this site because John did say, and I agree with him, it is a fairly tight site. We can't really get into using large shade trees, so I chose the Zelkova. As you move down, this is a sidewalk that's going to move down to the rest of the units. You have an outdoor area for the 2-family house behind a 2-family house. Okay, there could be grills on it, there could be tables. That's up to the people that are living in the property. There is a community area that's going to have both benches and a table, picnic table. There very possibly could be a grill on that also. And that would be more for the units down at the bottom, the 3 buildings down at the bottom. I changed trees around this area. I went back into honey locust, compound leaf, much easier on maintenance in the fall for the property. There's a little evergreen hedge that flanks this area here. Moving down to the rest of the units, each unit will have, I believe it's a 10 by 15 rear patio. You can see those, they're kind of the striped line behind all the units. And I won't go into the second plan, but each unit is going to have a very subtle fence detail. So, you know, people sitting on this particular patio are not immediately looking at people in this patio. Each patio is going to have its own private area to get to. We left, I know one of Aaron's comments, and I'm just going to mention it quickly, was on John's architectural site plan. There is a secondary entrance or exit into Bradley and Wall parking lot. And on Mike Ott's site plan, there is not. I think we probably would want to meet, I'm just guessing, with the fire marshal department to find if they did want the secondary entrance. I've worked on projects like this before. This could be a gated thing, so there's not cars coming back through, whatever the board would want to see. The green on the property is maintained lawn, and there are some different ornamental trees also along with the Zelkova and the honey locust. And I will go through, I think it might be easier. I'll go through the individual units at the next meeting. I think that gives you the overview on what the property is going to look like.
Thanks,
Okay.
John. I just actually
Welcome.
wanted to point out too, there's an inconsistency that you're not showing the trash receptacle on your plan. You're showing grass.
I was under the impression, maybe Mr. Matthews will help me out. I was under the impression that each of these units will have their own trash pickup. Okay, so there would not really be a need for a dumpster. But I might have missed a meeting when the dumpster came in. I'm not quite sure, but we can work that out as a team to figure out what it is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Oh, I'll stop sharing the screen and go back to let Aaron move back onto.
So dear, Aaron, just to point out, each unit has an 8-foot by 15-foot patio, but not a 10 by 15 that John mentioned. And that
Okay.
site plan you saw of his has been modified. That was the earlier plan. So the newer landscape plan, it doesn't have color, is more consistent with our plan. I mean, in talking with the owner today about the connecting driveway, the concern was, is it going to become a shortcut between Wall Street and Railroad Avenue? And we don't necessarily see that happening because it would be a pretty tight thing to do. But what we would suggest is say, if that becomes a problem, we put a gate up. I mean, if that really is a problem, we put up a gate. It could be a crash gate or have a key that the fire department would have if they would like to have that second means into the site.
Any questions from the commissioners at this point? Sort of the preliminary presentation.
We do. Mike Ott is on the site. He's doing all the stormwater, the sanitary, and we've been coordinating the utilities coming into the site. So that's a pretty detailed discussion. So I think we should probably save that for the next time.
Thanks, John. Just to pick up Aaron Mannix, town planner, for the record. I did provide a staff review of the site development plans, both the architectural site plan and the engineered site plan, mostly for consistencies and for any missing information. That's the basis of my staff memo to the commission. Yes, as the hour crept on this afternoon, that document has not made it to the town's website at this point. However, it is, I'm happy to read it into the record if the commission would like. Otherwise, it is submitted for the record. It does indicate 22 items that I'm asking the applicant to address, or at least suggest to the commission that the applicant should address these. It was my recommendation also that the hearing likely, in my opinion, should be continued to the March 3rd meeting to allow the applicant some time to work these out. I know John had mentioned he's hoping to have it continued to the February 17th meeting. I think that's definitely a conversation for their team if they're prepared to present their response to my memo and their full presentation on the 17th, then that's completely up to the commission. I had just recommended giving a month to allow for communication with the health department and utility companies.
Erin, I just want to ask, will your comments, the 22 points that you made, will that get posted then?
It will tomorrow morning. I apologize. I wasn't able to. The physical paper copy is in the file, which is the official record. However, it was not able to be uploaded this afternoon by our administrative staff, but we will have that up.
Thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I received a copy of Erin's. I think we all did, so I don't see a need to read it into the record tonight.
I agree. I was thinking that I just want to make sure it's out there and available to everyone. And because this is a public hearing, though, I would like to give the people who are attending the opportunity to raise any questions or concerns if we could.
It would be my recommendation, Carol, that if there are questions regarding the plan, to allow questions at this time, so that the applicant can at least know to try to address those in the presentation. But I would recommend holding
comments.
Right,
have a full
those in favor or against till after the formal presentation.
That sounds great. So I see there are attendees here, and if there are any questions, maybe we could entertain them and answer them. I don't see any hands raised at this point.
I have two. Tom Hansen, do you have a question or a comment? Can you unmute?
Unmute. Yes, there I am. Actually, thank you. I did have a comment. My name is Tom Hansen. I live at 120 Princess Drive in Madison. And I'm also chairman of the Water Pollution Control Authority, but I'm not speaking now as chairman or in any way associated with, I know it's going to be the approval process for wastewater and stormwater management on the site. I just wanted to make a comment. The Wall Street area, which I have seen grow in usage and density over the last 10 years or so, is an area where septic systems operate very well from a hydraulic standpoint because the soils are so good. But the downside of that is the treatment level and the renovation of the wastewater is not optimized because the water does move so quickly through the soil. And there are private wells on Amber Trail, or I think it's Amber Lane. And I was alerted to this quite a few years ago when Clarity came in. Those wells, I believe, would be at risk by the continued increase in septic systems along Wall Street and in this area. And I would encourage the Planning and Zoning Commission to carefully consider that. And you will obviously hear from Trent Joseph and Mike Ott and the other engineers associated with this project. But this project is a little bit different in that it does raise the possibility of other individual homeowners' wells, even though it might meet all the prescriptive requirements in terms of setback. This one might require a little bit more attention to what's been going on down there in the broad concept of how many septic systems are going in around the site. Most of these properties have public water, but Amber Trail does not, and possibly there are some other sites too. Thank you for letting me bring that up.
Thank you.
Again, just to highlight that this would be any questions you may have at this point, and we're saving comments for our next meeting here. Martin Brogy.
Yes, thank you. Martin Brogy here. I live at 28 Arbor Lane. I think I apologize, I can't recall the gentleman's name from the Water Authority, but it's Arbor Lane that abuts the property to the east and to the southeast. My home is about 200 feet southeast of the proposed development. If it's time for, and certainly there are, in fact, just to follow up on that information a little bit, there are 4 houses on Arbor Lane, all of which have private water supply wells. 3 of the wells are shallow wells, which are particularly susceptible to septic system pollutants. And then mine, which is a deep drilled well, and my well is actually contaminated with cis-1,2-dichloroethylene, breakdown product of dry cleaning solvents or potentially other solvents from the downtown area. So there's already pollution, in my well that's been documented. So certainly discharging 3,000 gallons of septic effluent into very sandy soil 100 feet, from my house is a very big concern. So with regard to questions, I didn't see any lighting details on the plans that I reviewed, and lighting is a very, very big concern for us on Arbor Lane. The Clarity Commons lighting design plan was not installed as promised and as designed. There was significant light pollution coming off of that property, certainly not consistent with the lighting plan that was shown. They've gone back and addressed many of the lights there. There's still one glaring one in the back of the building that's just awful. So I'm very concerned about lighting associated with this project. That's just one of my concerns. I didn't see a lighting plan. Hopefully we see a lighting plan and you folks pay really close attention to it. And then you inspect it afterwards and make sure that it's as designed and as installed. It's a huge issue, especially considering a residential development where we know we've got to have, some lighting in the parking areas, but lighting can be done obviously in such a way that doesn't impact the neighbors and still provide safety for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That is on our list, by the way, too.
One more, another one. Kayla and Larry DeBurra. Oh, okay. In order for them to be heard, I have to promote them to a panelist. They have an older version of Zoom, so I apologize. I will do that to let them have their question asked. There you go, Larry. You can unmute.
Thank you. Larry DeBurra, I live at 23 Arbor Lane. I won't really beat the dead horse too much of what we just talked about, but not pertaining to the project so much, but just broader. I know the initial comment from John Matthews said that we're looking at trying to get more high density housing in the downtown area. and what the commission, how they're going to consider quantity in terms of the wastewater. I know we have, just the generic setback requirements, but to consider, just a single system in terms of the distance to a well in comparison to, 16 units, the same thing going in on Bradley Road, that's an even higher development. Just to the north of us, Wellfleets already has the same thing. That's our big concern. Hopefully, it'll get addressed in that further meeting. And again, I don't want to drone on and take too much of everyone's time, but that's our concern. And as far as, in addition to just the wastewater, you're talking about taking a property and turning it to 80 to 90% pavement and buildings. So just your general rainwater, we're downstream of that. It's just going to head right at us. So we're a little bit concerned about, erosion considerations as well. And again, hopefully these get answered in the upcoming meetings. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys the heads up that was the concerns that we had and why we were here. And hopefully we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
One more.
Yes, I have one more. Sam DeBurra.
Hi, I'm Sam DeBurra at 20 Arbor Lane. So my property abuts one of those 5-section houses, and the power lines from the substation are going right through our property. And I want to know how they're going to address those power lines so they're not going to be moved anywhere near any of the structures that are on my property. So if they could come back with that. But there wasn't any clear picture in the plans that I saw. So that's, hopefully the next round, they could have somebody from Eversource or somebody address how they would do that.
Thanks, Sam.
And then I'll leave the rest until we hear the rest of it.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised with questions, Madam Chair.
So I think maybe the best thing for us to do would be to vote to table this.
Would be a continuation of the
Continuation.
public hearing.
Right, it's a public hearing, so to continue the public hearing. Aaron, you had recommended, I think, to March 3rd. We still have plenty of time. And that would give the applicant plenty of time to address the issues that you've raised.
Right, you have 35 days to hold a public hearing open without an extension from the applicant. So yes, you would be within that time frame to continue the hearing until the March meeting. The March 7th meeting, excuse me.
If I may, Michael Iacursi for the applicant, we would be looking just for the next hearing for February, I believe it's 17th. So thank you.
Okay, I think.
I'm fine with March 3rd. There's so many deficiencies, and Aaron's given us a tip that it's going to take some time. Why schedule it, have all the public show up and then reschedule it? So we had the power to do it. They had the power to get us what we needed the first time, and they didn't. There's too many outstanding issues. So I will second a motion if that's what John was making.
John?
Can I just say one quick thing though? If there are issues that come up at that meeting, then which might require a further continuation, or we might want a further continuation in the discussion, we'll be beyond the 35 days then and would need an extension. Is that right? From the
Correct. The applicant would have to grant you an extension to hold the hearing open further.
So that's just something else to consider if we're thinking of pushing it back to March.
But true, but if the reason that it had to be held open is they again didn't provide us whatever and they wouldn't give us an extension, we would just simply turn the application down. So is that right, Aaron? It's an incomplete application, still in March. You tell me.
I think typically applicants tend to work with the commission
Right.
to try to get all the questions addressed so that the commission can make a determination based on sufficient information. You have the right to continue this to the 17th, allow the should you wish, allow the applicant a chance to reach out to the necessary parties to try to coordinate. If their attorney feels they may be able to provide this information in time. The worst case would be to continue from the 17th to the 3rd. Again, you know, it is up to the commission. There's really no harm in either way at this point, I don't think.
I'll amend my motion to the 17th.
Could we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Elliot. All in favor of keeping it open till the 17th? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ron, one opposed.
Third.
Okay, so I think we'll move it to the 17th. Keep it open until then. Great. All right. So no deliberation on that one yet. Public hearing is closed at this point. Do I need to make a motion for that?
No, it was continued.
It
It's not
continued.
closed.
Okay, thank you.
We did not close the public hearing.
Okay, so we have, Erin, did you want to discuss any of the other pending applications? And
We
new
do have
applications?
one other item, let's see. Yes, Summer Hill, and I will do a little housekeeping here and get, let's see. I will get Chuck Mandel, I believe is still here. Here he is. On behalf of the applicant for Summer Hill Road, which is a 3-lot subdivision, which was tabled from the last meeting. You there, Chuck?
Yes, I am. Let me know when you're ready.
Sure. Are you going to share your screen with the plans, or how are you looking?
Well, actually, if you could share sheet 2 of 4, Aaron. I'm
Okay.
working very remotely right now, so my connection's not great.
I hope it's someplace fun.
I'm down in Marathon Key, as a matter of fact. It's about
Oh,
80
yeah.
degrees, 80 degrees right now.
I'm not sure I should be willing to help you.
It's easy down there.
Second thought.
Just lost all sympathy we may have had for anything.
Okay, I got myself in.
I'm gonna make
No, it's
Tony
it
come
was-
over and do this for you.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
35 degrees there last week. Poor thing.
I don't miss it.
Okay, these are plans dated 1/25, right, Chuck?
Yes, we Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant, Arbin Nico. He's a builder. He's done a few houses in Madison, and the owners are the Lovejoys. But this is he is actually the applicant. If you go to the site plan, we discussed some of this at the last meeting. It's a 3-lot subdivision in an RU1 zone. We're proposing 3 conforming building lots. We do have approval for the potential septic areas from the health department. These lots can support septic. I contacted David Roach, and we do have a letter from the Madison Land Conservation Trust that they are very interested in obtaining the open space element of this. There's about 1,000 feet of river frontage along the Hannahmassett River that we're proposing to deed to the town. Also, if you go to the sheet 2, Aaron, that shows the site development plan, gives a little bit more detail to the commission. So if you look all the way to the north, which would be to your right. So we're proposing 4 parking spaces for public use. It's actually a natural dip in the road there, so it would lend itself to our parking, so people could access the trail that you can see. It's a dotted line just below the property line, which is on land trust property, and then it meanders back onto the subject property. We are asking, we do have wetlands approval also. There is a letter in the record for that. We are asking for a waiver, not for area for open space, but for the upland aspect of the open space. So in regards to the area, we're offering about 27% more land than what's required, but it's not all upland. But there is access to the site through the upland area. So you're not walking through a swamp, actually. And I believe there were a couple of questions that Aaron had. One was from the town engineer. One was sight lines along Summer Hill. There is a second lot. There is a bit of a hill there. So we went out and did sight line plans for each driveway, and those are also part of the sheets. So we did prove the sight line. The speed limits there, posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour on that road. The other element there was there are 2 existing culverts that currently have no easements for the town to service. So we are proposing to the south, there's a culvert, and to the midway through the property. So we're doing a 25 by 25 drainage easement for cleaning if they do need maintenance on them. There'll be their wells. We are mitigating stormwater with rain gardens, and I think that pretty much covers it. And if you have any questions, I will certainly try to answer you.
Were you still looking? I'm sorry.
Are there any questions?
I jumped the gun. I did have a comment. Chuck, I did have some staff comments here, which I will, excuse me. Could really use 2 screens here. Okay. Just to reiterate what Chuck had said, these plans are in response to the town engineer's previous email. One thought that the town has had is these easements are identified as drainage easements. However, I believe that the town would like them to be labeled as drainage maintenance easements. So that the town does not only have the right to drain, which they probably already do, that they have the right to access those culverts on the property should any maintenance or repairs need to be done. So that was one comment. And then, yes, as Chuck had indicated, section 3.11 of the subdivision code requires that no more than 50% wetland type soils, as defined in the general statutes in the inland wetland section, could be dedicated as part of the open space requirement. The commission may grant a waiver of this section with a 3/4 vote of all members in cases. There's 2 cases that the commission should consider. One is, in the opinion of the commission, the conditions exist which affect the subject land and are not generally applicable to other land in the area. Or number 2, conditions exist where the strict application of the subdivision regulations is either unnecessary or undesirable due to conditions which affect the subject land and are generally not applicable to other land in the area. The commission is required to state on the record the reasons for which the waiver is granted in each instance. And again, as Chuck had indicated, the Madison Land Conservation Trust has submitted a letter indicating a desire to accept this open space as proposed, as it is contiguous to existing open space that they already have. The lot sizes and areas do comply with the zoning regulations. Lastly, and this was not addressed in a staff memo, but you did remind me of this, Chuck, when you discussed the installation of four public parking spaces along Summer Hill. I think it would be appropriate, should the commission move forward, that that willingness be acknowledged. However, the actual location within the town right of way for sightline reasons or safety purposes should be ultimately at the discretion of the town engineer with encroachment permits. So that does not necessarily need to be a condition of approval that those parking spaces be installed. That's all I had. I don't know if the commission has any other questions. I did provide you with a draft resolution if you were leaning in that direction.
Well, I do. We ourselves don't have any familiarity with the other land in the area to know whether this is just like the lot next door, not like the lot next door. I'm all in favor of this. Giving the land next to the river makes total sense. But if we have to find that the exception is based upon all the other lands, maybe Chuck can comment on that and just give us a factual basis.
Yeah, this is Chuck Mandel. I have walked the property, even though it shows it as wetland, it's really not swamp. And actually, when the soil scientist was out there, it was like, to me, it didn't look like wetlands. That's why we have Bob Russo delineated the wetlands. And right now, the entire land trust property along there is within the wetlands. And yet there is a walking trail there, which you can walk. And the walking trail is in the wetlands. So as Aaron said, it doesn't materially affect what we're giving you. It's not swamp and you're jumping from hummock to hummock on the okay. I don't know if I answered the question.
Chuck, can you speak to any unique characteristics of this particular parcel as it may differ from any other parcels in that general area, which creates that unique situation to allow for that just makes it stand out, you know?
Well, the one aspect is it has there's an existing trail there, and it's about 1,000 feet along the river. It is a very unique property in that regard, and there is access for the public to get down there. So in those regards, it is a very unique spot.
Good.
I'm losing my power, so I got to get one more cord. Sorry.
Chuck, could you just review for us again where the access is for the public? I wasn't sure if it was that center kind of culvert almost.
No, it's all the way to the north.
It's to the north side, so to the far.
Correct, where we
Okay.
were proposing the parking.
Thanks.
The actual access is not on this property currently, correct? There's existing public access to a trail on other land trust land?
Yeah, correct. There is no public access right now to this.
Okay.
It's all privately owned. And as Aaron had mentioned, the parking we're proposing is within the town right of way, so we would have to talk to the town engineer about that. But it is in a unique area where there's actually the edge of pavement is actually quite removed from the parking.
And Chuck, is this the trail?
Yes, actually,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly right.
So you can
right
see
now, So right now, for the public to use that trail, they would have they trespass right now on the property to use that trail. They would actually be forced into a wet area if they wanted to access that.
So that does continue. So this is already existing land trust.
Yes, correct. And
Land here.
That's being used, but the current owners have not prevented people from using
This particular area is flatter in nature and could provide for an opportunity, as Chuck had said, for additional public access should the land trust look to do that in the future.
Correct, and they are interested in taking it, but they won't go any further until if this does get approved, then they will go forward with the actual dedication.
Good question, Ron.
Any other questions or comments? Any motions?
We need Peter to draft this up again.
Or we could take the motion as submitted by Aaron, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's right. The motion submitted by Aaron would be fine. I propose that we accept that or vote upon that. Do you need it read into the record, Aaron?
Yes, it should be.
Should be.
Do you have access to it, or do you want me to?
I printed it out, so I will read it again.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, here we go. Voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve application 21-28 Summer Hill Road, map 110, lot 30, RU1, 3-lot subdivision is shown on a set of plans entitled Subdivision Plan Nineva Estates, prepared by Arbin Mecco, pardon me if I said that wrong, Assessor's Map 110, Lot 30, Summer Hill Road, Madison, Connecticut, by Thomas A. Stevens and Associates, Inc., dated revised to 1/25/22 with the following condition. 1, that the record subdivision map be modified to include a maintenance easement in favor of the town of Madison in the areas identified as drainage easements at the culvert outlets. And 2, that easement language be submitted to the town for review and approval prior to the filing of a record subdivision map. Be it further voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve with a 3/4 vote a waiver of section 3.11 of the subdivision regulations to allow for greater than 50% wetland type soils in the dedicated open space area. This action is taken based upon the finding that the unique characteristics of this property include frontage along the Hammonasset River. This proposed open space, while consisting of mostly wetland soils, provides an opportunity to preserve the immediate upland adjacent to the significant natural resource in our community. The fact that this area is contiguous with the existing Madison Land Trust property allows for an undeveloped corridor of the river to remain protected into perpetuity. The effective date of this approval is February 18th, 2022, and upon filing of the record subdivision map on the land records.
You're good, Peter. Terrific.
We have a second.
I'll second.
John Mathers, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think that's
Chuck just keeps winning. Just shows up and keeps winning.
Hold the thought, Ron, for the next one.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna grab a fishing pole. The tide's coming. So enjoy the weather tomorrow. And thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care, Chuck.
Okay, the next agenda item would be 21-30 109 Hartford Avenue, which also comes with some serious issues.
This has, I can update the commission. I actually met Dep and the property owners and their professionals out on site today to go over the wall and the state's concerns regarding the armoring of the slope of that bluff. So I think they made some progress. The applicant is revising some drawings and is looking forward to coming back, sending those revisions to the state, and then hopefully getting a favorable recommendation and coming back before you at the next meeting. So
Great.
we're getting there.
Big progress. That's great. So we don't need to move to table it. It's already tabled.
Yes, that's fine. He did request that.
Okay, great. And then a new application at 22-0001, 544 Opening Hill Road. It seemed quite preliminary what I saw on our website.
Right, this is an application for a re-subdivision and is currently before inland wetlands. So at this point, as you're aware, the statutes do require that a re-subdivision have a public hearing. So the commission, it would be our recommendation to set that public hearing for March 3rd. And then we'll look to have a full presentation from the applicant and hopefully comments, a report from the Inland Wetlands Agency then.
Okay, great. Thank you. And next we have 22-03, 1362 Boston Post Road for landscaping plan at Salt Meadow Park.
Yes, this is an application that the town is making while working with the Mad for Trees organization to plant additional trees throughout town. This does require review by ACA, and so they'll be going to ACA next week, which is why we've kicked any discussion down the road to our next meeting.
And Erin, is it really a zoning issue if it's just landscaping and trees still comes before us as well?
Yes, this park is a special exception use with an approved site plan and landscaping plan that had not been implemented. And so a modification of that approved plan does require the commission's approval.
Okay, good. What I saw looks really good. Just my thoughts. Next on the agenda is Elliot, you're up with the approval of minutes from January 20th, 2022.
Yes, I have the meeting minutes from January 20th, 2022. Members present were Snow, Hitchcock, McDowell, and Hay. And entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Giselle, seconded by Peter. Any questions, comments, changes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? None. Okay, approved.
Thank you.
That's good. That means Raquel's doing a great job.
Good job. All right, remarks. I have nothing to add really, except thank you all for your patience with me fumbling along a little bit here, but
You're great.
You're doing fine.
getting up to speed, one meeting at a time. Erin, did you have any remarks you'd like to make?
No, thank you.
I had a question. Why do I have this recollection that somehow the hearing in the middle of the month was when we have the public hearings, and then the meeting at the first of the month, the sort of planning and discussion? We now just seem to be throwing public hearings, whichever one we want to, and whenever. Is there any desire to get back to, let's have the public hearings in the middle of the month, and let's do some thinking and planning and discussion at the first meeting? Or are we just going to continue? Does anyone have that recollection? Peter, you were on, other people were on.
You're
Yeah,
correct.
we used to, yeah, I thought about that too. We used to have very specifically a planning meeting and a zoning meeting. And new people, new changes, I'm not opposed to it, but I agree with Ron. That's what we used to do.
It did. You're correct. And sorry, Carol, go ahead and I'll
No, I just wanted to show off
I'll
some
share my 2 cents after.
show off some of my training, which is, as I understand it now, when you have combined commissions that are planning and zoning, we can schedule it as we see fit and according to the pressures of deadlines. And
I understand that.
That is correct. And I also just want to remind you all that we are on the verge of diving into plan of conservation and development updates where we will likely be utilizing one meeting a month dedicated solely to that purpose, which will be completely wearing your planning hats. So at this time with pending applications and not really any new actual planning business to handle, that's why we've just been bringing
Dividing.
items before you as they come up. But yes, you can actually use both of their meetings. I think this was more of just the way the commission happened to be holding their meetings. But you, as Carol indicated, you are a combined commission. And so both of your meetings are regularly scheduled meetings with respect to the statutory timeframes for meeting dates and holding hearings open. So there's no exemption to that of just allowing the second meeting of the month to count. You know, so if you had 35 days, for example, or 65 days to act on an application, you couldn't just count your second meeting of the month. You do have to include both meetings. So I'm not saying that you've got caught up in that in the past, but yes, you do have to wear both a zoning hat and a planning hat. And we will have lots of items to discuss with our POCD. And I guess I could use this as a brief update. I am just starting to get started on the RFP process to look to hire a consultant. We do have dedicated funds already in our department to use towards hiring a consultant to help the commission along with that process of updating our plan. So that's going to take a lot of work and it does need to be done by the end of next year.
Aaron,
So the earlier we start, the better.
Is this an effort that all of planning and zoning does, or is it more where 3 or 4 come off of planning and zoning, then other citizens from the town of Madison join as well?
This is a planning document that is adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission per statutes, but it's different than the zoning regulations where you craft those regs. This is a very townwide, this is the town's vision of where we see
Right, right. No, I
ourselves going.
understand.
So yes, public workshops. I understand in the past they've had some committees who have helped with that process. And again, the consultant would guide us with having workshops and surveys and all sorts of public outreach and information sessions. So this will be a very public and we'll be seeking everybody's input.
Yeah, I guess my only point would be there are things, we've seen some applications in the last year that have drawn a lot of flack from the public, and we need to find a way when we move forward to get the public involved.
Absolutely. Yes.
We really do. I mean, because it's one thing to say, you know, I'm against this or for it, whatever, but if you've not been involved in the process to build the POCD, then, you know, where's the gripe?
Right.
So we've got to make sure people have room and the availability and the time to really say what they think and be really engaged.
Right. There are goals throughout the town, and based on those goals and policies that you look to either establish or continue, then as a commission, we begin to look at our zoning regulations and how we can change those to help propel us in the right direction here. And so we do have some updates that need to be done to our zoning regulations. We are, I think, kind of holding off on that process rather than doing it piecemealed ahead of the POCD. My opinion would be to do an overall to the complete regulations after we adopt a POCD. So it'll keep us busy for years.
The terms will run out.
And then we get another
Who's
POCD.
hoping?
Who said they're hoping? But if you have any planning things that you know are on your mind, Ron, please let us know, and we can, you know, we can move things around if
I'm just thinking
commission
we're
wants.
going to be spending a lot of time on it, and if we're also burdened at the same meeting with public hearings and whatever, we're gonna be going to midnight, just trying to talk about planning. So I think whatever we do to plan ahead to clear out some dates that aren't burdened with public hearings would be very helpful once we get into it.
I agree. We will have to dedicate certain meetings to that solely. Yes.
Okay, I think, are we all set for the evening? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Peter, thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Giselle is who I heard, so thank you, Giselle. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening and the rain, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Carol.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening.
Good night.
Take
Night.
care.